You're listening to Radio Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay. This is the program called
The Wonderful World of Wardini Books.
And as always, my pleasure to have in the studio Lou from Wardini Books in Havelock North. How you going, Lou?
Yeah, very well, thanks.
Yeah, you've been flattered.
Distracted by some jiggling.
Yeah, it was creaking.
Oh, a creak, okay.
Yeah, I thought it was my bones, but no, it's this microphone stand that keeps creaking.
I'm not going to touch it.
And today we have three more fabulous books to look at, two kids' books, and the first one of those is called Monster and Boy.
Monster and Boy, and there they are, The Boy and the Monster. It's by Hannah Barnaby, and it's illustrated by Anusha Saeed. And it's just a little chapter book like that. And reading it in the dark, the green pages were quite difficult to read in the, evening with old eyes. But anyway, the intended audience doesn't have old eyes. So it is literally about a monster and a boy. And the first thing that happens is, when the monster, who lives under the bed, finally meets the boy, who sleeps in the bed, the boy starts to scream, and the monster promptly swallows him. And that is the start of a beautiful friendship. So, mums always tell their children, there's no monster under the bed. But there is, but this one's quite lovely. And he swallows him, and then he thinks, I kind of shouldn't have done that, because I love this boy. He really loves him. And then he thinks, but I feel all full up and warm, and he's still in there, and I can still talk to him, so maybe that's quite cool. But then he thinks, no, that's not very fair. And so they hatch a plan together to get the boy out, and they do. But when the boy comes out, he's about this big, he's tiny, tiny weenie, and then the rest of the book is about, like, how the heck do we get him back to boy size? And they're like, and the monster's torn, because he's like, well, I could have him all to myself if he was tiny. He could just be under the bed with me, but then his mum might go mad, and then they meet another monster in the kitchen, which is the boy's little sister, and it's all quite delightful and quite bizarre, really.
It does sound rather bizarre, and I presume it's got a happy ending, but it's a funny thing, kids, isn't it, that they love scary stories. Yeah. But then they get scared when they go to bed, so it's sort of rocking the hard-post. Tell you a scary story, yeah, all right, oh my God, and then I'm scared. Yeah, we had that with this series that we've spoken about before called Lockwood and Co, which is for older kids, sort of 9+, but it's got some really scary moments in it. And I had a mum come back and say she had nightmares. She was reading it before bed and she had nightmares. And I said, I'm so sorry. And she said, that's okay, where's book 2? Because they loved them.
The kids loved it. Yeah. So Monster and Boy. And there's going to be a sequel, which is when it's the monster goes to school, the monster's first day at school.
So what age kid is going to appreciate that book the most?
It says on the back, which is interesting, 6 to 9. So if you are a little reading prodigy of 6, you can read that all by yourself, or, going upwards. But also I think it would make quite a fun family bedtime story, because it's in little chapters, so you can have a couple of chapters and then off they go to bed. And really, if a child does have a monster under the bed for you, this monster's delightful. It's just like a big teddy bear.
And a great story to put the voices on, so you make the
you
monster
could
voice.
have a really cool monster voice. And then when the boy's little, you could have a little squeaky voice.
Yeah. Tell us about Porcasso.
I love this. I love it. Well, I'm a dog fan anyway.
Yeah.
So this is by Remy, I think that's, Lay, because an Indonesian surname. So it's a graphic novel, so it's like that,
like
all the way through. A comic, formerly known as comics.
Yes.
And it's about a little girl called Jo, and her dad goes away for work quite a lot. He has to go over to Indonesia for work, and she tries not to feel it. She gets really upset whenever he leaves. He comes home for a week and then he leaves again, so she tries to detach herself a little bit. She's got 2 baby twin brothers and an older sister who's a bit of a cow to her. And mum's quite lovely. And Jo's a bit lonely, actually. So, the school's broken up for the spring break, and she's just sitting there staring out the window, and mum's like, get outside, go and do something. And she sees this dog wandering along. He's not got a lead on, and he's carrying a shopping basket, and she follows him, and he goes around all the shops, and he's got a list in it, and the people know he's coming, and they just take the money and go, there you go, sweetheart, there's your lentils and your kale, because it's obviously a very healthy owner, making kale smoothies or something, and it just potters around, and Jo follows it around, and it goes into the bookshop with her, and then these kids that are at an art class think it's her dog, and she keeps trying to tell them, no, it's not my dog. Oh no, but it's gorgeous, your dog. Oh, how did you train it, and how did you do this? And she's going, and then it's just easier to say, yes, it is my dog. And then they want to draw the dog, so the dog and her have to go every Saturday, and she thinks, oh well, he won't turn up next Saturday, so it'll all be over and I'll get out of this mess that I've inadvertently got myself into. But Porcasso, as they start to call him, does turn up next Saturday, and on it goes, and she just digs this massive hole for herself, and she's constantly stressed about being found out. But she's making friends. sort of for the first time, really.
So it's got a moral to it.
It's just delightful. So it's just fun, and the dog is great. And the dog's naughty because she follows him home to try and find out where he lives. And he goes through the park to the other side. It's like, there he goes. Sniff, 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 sniff. And he loves rolling in poo.
Oh.
So he's rolling, rolling, rolling. And she's like, oh, my God. And then she meets the girl at the drive-through dog wash place because she takes him there and they make friends and she goes to the art class. It's just delightful, Ken.
Yeah, sounds like a good story.
I hope there are going to be further adventures of Joe and Porcasso. That's not his real name.
Are those comic books, are they popular? I mean, or do they still have comics like the Beano and the Dandy and the Victor? Are they still available? Or?
Yeah, the Beano we sell in the shop, so that's still going. But graphic novels as a thing for getting reluctant readers to read is amazing.
Great
and schools
idea.
are really catching on. They've caught on to it for the past couple of years. So we've got an expanding graphic novel section.
I was amazed at just how many they have in the library. It's fabulous.
It's a big thing at the moment, and I'm glad.
Yeah.
Because they're fun.
They are fun. Tell us about the Rose Code.
Oh my God. For pure enjoyment of a good yarn, I haven't enjoyed anything so much in a long time. You know, you can read worthy things and beautiful things, but just for a cracking good story. So
Look at the size of it.
It's a whopper, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is the advanced copy, so that's, you know, the real cover is even more gloriously glamorous than that. So it's set in the Second World War, and it's set mostly at Bletchley Park. So you're familiar with Bletchley
it's
Park?
a famous place, isn't it?
Code breaking,
yes,
the Enigma
indeed.
Code. Alan Turing, he turns up in the book twice. He's got like this little cameo thing because it's not about him. So it's about a silly debutante. She's sick of being called that, called Osler Kendall, and she's based on a real Osler, whose surname I can't remember, who was Prince Philip's first girlfriend. So Prince Philip is a character in this book.
He gets in there.
Yeah,
Is it
he's
based on
Osler's
fact?
boyfriend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really well researched, but it's a story. Let's be clear on that too. So there's Osler. She wants to do something for the war effort. She doesn't want to be a silly Deb, and she gets this job at Bletchley Park, and she gets on the train. She has no idea where she's going because it's so steeped in secrecy, and it's only just come out in the past few years, really, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
And the sort of statute of
That movie,
limitations
yeah.
on the Official Secrets Act finishes. And on the train, she meets Mab, who is an East London girl, and she's tried all her life to get rid of those terrible vows and and lift herself up. She's got a little sister called Lucy, and she wants better things for Lucy and for herself. And so she's a self-professed social climber. She wants to find a good husband and get out of East London. So she's on the train. She's very tall, and Osler immediately calls her Queen Mab, you know, and off they go. They don't know where they're going, and they turn up at Bletchley Park, and they're like, oh, okay, sign this, you know, if you actually break this Official Secrets Act and tell anybody what we're doing here, you will be probably hung. Like,
good incentive.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
And they're billeted in the nearby village with a very religious woman whose husband just sits in the chair and reads his newspaper and doesn't get involved, and their daughter Beth, who's also sort of maybe 19, 20, and she is completely battered by the mother mentally into thinking that she's weird, she's not very clever, you know, she's worthless by the religious mother. But the other two girls come to realise that Beth's got a hell of a brain in there. She can do the Times crossword in like 7 minutes or something. And they get her a job at Bletchley Park, and she becomes one of the best code breakers that they've got. So it's these three girls, and it's their story at Bletchley Park, and you're in the war with them, and then you're like 7 years after the war as well, and it flips back and forth. One of them's in a lunatic asylum.
Oh, right.
They've all betrayed each other. And then you have to go and read the other bits to figure out why and what's happened. It was thrilling, Ken. It was thrilling, and I couldn't put it down, and I had many late nights.
And does it come together in the end that they all get back together and all buddies again?
I'm going to tell you that. Read it.
Oh, I know. Look, I think that'd take me about 3 years to read that.
No, well, it took me longer than, you know, because it is so big, but there's nothing in it I'd take out. No. You know, when you see it, you know, oh, did they really need to make it that big? I loved it. I could have stayed there a lot longer.
Would it make a good movie?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Well, she wrote The Alice Network. Was that made into a movie? I'm not sure. Kate Quinn. I don't think I even said that. I was so excited, didn't even tell you who wrote it.
Out of 10?
10 out of 10.
Who's going to read it? Everyone?
Yeah, and I think it's not just for ladies. There is romance and stuff in it, but I think men secretly like a bit of romance too. And I think for the war stuff, Churchill turns up at Bletchley Park, you know. So for the historical story in it too, anybody really that just wants a good yarn.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good on you, Lou. As always, my pleasure. Just remind our listeners before you get out of here, where do we get these marvellous books?
Wardini books, please. That would be marvellous.
Until next week, you look after yourself.
Cheers, Ken.